Hello, everybody. Welcome to this edition of Entrepreneur Odyssey. And today I'm delighted to be joined by the lovely Barbara Steinberg, who is the founder of eFraud Services. Welcome to the podcast, Barbara.
Thank you, Tiffany. It's a pleasure to be here.
Great to have you on. And Barbara, you've got a really interesting career. A really varied career that's led you to building your current business. Do you mind telling me and the audience what led you to creating eFraud Services?
Sure. It's kind of a long journey. I'll try to shorten it. My journey extends longer than probably everybody, longer than the lifespan of everybody on this podcast. But I started out in the computer industry many, many years ago. Briefly, I have an undergraduate degree in medical computer science from like 50 years ago. I have a master. I was studying biomedical engineering, got a master's in electrical engineering, and got an MBA along the line. Not relevant. So I started out, I was a programmer, and then I built systems. I was a manager. From there, I went into consulting and eventually into sales. So over my career lifespan, I've pretty much done it all in terms of technology, and then I've seen obviously a lot of changes in technology. As a segue I had all my experiences in applications. I was in healthcare for a long time. I was in manufacturing for a long time. I always had to feel like I was doing something, for somebody, in what I was doing. Anyway, 1990 around, I decided there was nothing interesting happening in the computer industry, so I went into financial services. So I did that for a while. I actually had a business. I've had a few businesses, educating employees about, their benefits and stock markets and things like that. Fast forward around 2000.com era, I was back in software sales. After that, and I'm not sure what the segue is, I had a business for a long time, elder care financial planning, and then I'm getting to eFraud from this. And I helped the elderly pay for long-term care, assisted living, nursing home, home care, with assistance from veterans benefits, as well as eventually Medicaid, which is how we got to eFraud. When we're doing Medicaid applications in the US, for those of you who are not aware, it's a program for the elderly or for the, impoverished, who need long-term care or other health care and can't afford it. So the government, pays for it or subsidizes it. But when it comes to nursing homes and things like that, they're very critical in terms of applications and scrutinizing people. They have what's called a 5-year look back, which means they look at everybody's bank accounts, opened or closed, for the past 5 years before the application. And what they're looking for is fraud. Did you give away your money to your children and now you're turning around and saying, government paid for my nursing home care at $15,000 a month.
Okay.
So they're scrutinizing all that. So being a tech person, I looked at, my employees, and they're copying from paper bank statements into giant Excel spreadsheets. I said, must be a way to automate this. So I found a company actually in Scotland who had software for doing this, and I'll explain the technological challenge as well. So we were using it, and then what happened around that time, 2014 or so, I moved to Florida. I sold my business in New Jersey, and I became their US reseller. Now, I'll explain a little bit about banks and by the way, their business was fraud detection. That was
Okay,
the core software.
that's the key thing. Okay,
Yeah.
brilliant.
So the software tool worked, for bank statements. It just happened to be, a different industry. Now, here's the challenge. In the US, we still have about 4,000 banks. 5, 10 years ago, we probably had 10,000 banks. Every one of them has a different format. I mean, it's very different than Europe, and very, very different. The challenge is, and when they do these cases, the same thing happens in fraud. The crime probably happened a couple of years ago. The investigator is looking back 5 years before that. And if you have a big fraud case, you might have 40, 50 accounts, bank accounts, credit card accounts, brokerage statements, and things like that. And there's money moving all over the place between them. So the questions are, who is the money coming from and going to? Where is it coming from and going to? It's massive data. So when it comes to the bank statements or the financial documents, you just don't download it from the bank anymore. You can download PDFs and things like that, but a lot
Yeah.
of this is paper documents that are being scanned in. The majority of it are paper documents that are being scanned in. So we're not looking at data, we're looking at images. So the challenge for technology is to extract the data from those images. And now we're looking at scanned documents. Some of them, they're cockeyed. I just had one. It was the worst bank statement I ever saw in my life. I mean, it didn't have tables or anything. It had things all over the place.
Gosh, making.
But the other challenge is the format because the format's different on every one. How do you write, your code that says, okay, look at this over and over again. Okay, so it begins the journey of eFrog. About 5, 6 years ago, the software that we were using was very manual. It could do any bank statement, which was the beauty of it, but the downside was you had to draw a box on with your mouse on your screen around every table on every page. So the credits, the debits, and some of these statements can have hundreds of pages. So it was semi-manual. It was a lot better than doing it, totally manually. And it worked, but like 5, 6 years ago, it's like this is not cutting it anymore. People don't want to do process. To AI. I said, okay, I don't know anything about AI, but AI must be able to do what I'm doing manually. So we started the journey with machine learning. And 5 years later, we could not get machine learning to give us the accuracy that we needed. Because with these cases, these people are going to court and they're testifying that the data is 100% accurate. So having it accurate is very important. And having to do a lot of manual work to make it accurate is not a good thing.
Mhm.
So what happened with machine learning was we couldn't get the accuracy.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons is the difference in the formats. And I like to make the analogy, if I give a computer 100 invoices and on a one or 200 invoices on 201, it says, yeah, I know that's an invoice. Here's the keywords. Here's the data. I give
Mhm.
it 200 bank statements in 201. It says, I don't have a clue.
Right. Yeah.
Just that was the difference in the uniqueness about, the bank statement challenge. Anyway, fast forward little over a year ago, somebody says, it'll never work. He says, Gen AI. He said, 2 weeks ago, you couldn't do this, but I want you to try this. Sure enough, that was the game changer.
Amazing. Amazing. So,
So,
wow. I would just say, first of all, what a varied and interesting career that you have. Really, really interesting career. And e-fraud services, it sounds like such an important tool because, like you say, having to look at multiple different bank statements, maybe up to 50 from multiple different banks in different formats, is a real challenge. And yeah, I'd love to hear a little bit more about the technology behind it. And so you leverage Gen AI, and
yes.
how has that changed the game for you?
Sure. And I'm the prompt engineer, and I hadn't programmed in a million years. We had all these developers and stuff. For 5 years, we went through a ton of developers. None of them could get it to work. And so I was the prompt engineer. And so knowing bank statements, I'm probably the world's foremost expert in bank statement formats. I was able to get it to what I wanted to do. So the challenge is if you think about AI wants to give you everything, in the world. And here I was forcing it. No, you have to do the same thing over and over again every single time, and it has to be accurate. So that was a real challenge. Okay, so fast forward. So now the AI is working, the prompts are working, but the developers we had couldn't get the rest of it to work, the APIs and everything else up and down. Okay, fast forward to June of last year. I said, okay, I've stayed away from the technology because I don't know Java. I don't know this Python. I don't know this. I said, to look at it. So I started looking at it. I said, something's wrong because what would happen is, we get somebody to try it out and they put in a bank statement. Guy put in 10 bank statements, 10 months. Some of them worked, some of them failed. Why? Each statement had over 300 transactions in one monthly statement. So the system wasn't built to handle that. And one of the other challenges we have with Gen AI is we have tons and tons of data and it's not built to handle tons of data coming in or tons of data going out. So we had to do a lot, to make that work. Okay. So I start looking at the code and I was mortified. And I'm using Gen AI, by the way, again, I don't know the code or anything, but using Gen AI, I'm able to figure out what's going on and make changes and update things and stuff like that. So over the course of 6, 8 months, I pretty much rewrote the whole system using Gen AI, still not knowing really how to code this. I mean, I would say my coding background obviously helped.
Yeah.
I wouldn't expect somebody who didn't have it to be able to do it, but I still can't write Java, or anything else.
You
JavaScript.
don't need to know that now, right? Because AI is building it all for you.
Right. And we had all these different developers and everyone used a different, language format, our front end is React Node, or back end in Java. This one is JavaScript, something, it's just crazy. TypeScript is the AI. It's all over the place, but it doesn't matter because AI knows it all.
Yeah. Yeah.
So anyway, so I was able to do a lot. I mean, there were really a lot of shortcomings and stuff like that. It couldn't, scale, all kinds of stuff. Security wasn't there. Um, so that's what I've been doing. I mean, tweaked it, and I've worked, a lot, day and night for a lot of months and stuff like that. And along the way, I hired some other people. Every time I'd hire somebody else, they would break it. What happens is one of the things I didn't realize up front was the complexity of the technology. And until you get into it and all the pieces, like everything is in AWS, we must use 20 different AWS tools, within it.
Mhm.
And then, all these languages, a different repository for each one, which one's a different language. But I'm able to handle it all, with Gen AI. I mean, I sit here and I'm doing stuff. I'm doing some, new reports and dashboards and things like that, use interfaces now and stuff. One cool thing I'm working on, very proud of this. If you think about these cases, like I said, the money goes back and forth between all these accounts and things like that. Now I'm an investigator. Where do I start? What am I looking at? So one of the things is the inter-account transactions, because they just move money around. My brother-in-law and my cousin, everybody's got accounts, in these
Yeah.
cases. So I just did a report, and a diagram that actually shows, it summarizes no matter how many accounts are in there, whatever time period or whatever, it shows the money going, the transactions, inter-account transactions, with a diagram that says for each account, okay, how much is going in, how much is going out, where is it going to, and stuff like that. So you can see all the linkages. So the $2 million is going between these two accounts. You're going to focus there rather than $2,000 between these two. So now it's really the analysis piece and getting into it. But the beauty of the whole thing and the beauty of VFraud is that it's near 100% data accuracy. I will say, the days of OCR and errors and manual correction and stuff, which is what most people are doing now, are beyond us. And it's fast,
And the security is built in as well, you said?
the security, we're using AWS,
AWS.
security to take care of it.
Right.
Or we have a business intelligence platform that we white label that's built into it. And then that gives us security, one customer can't see another customer's data, things like that. And we've got a few capabilities. Some of the features I'll just mention quickly, and this is based on my being in the industry. And for a while when the other software got so bad, I was the service bureau. I was doing it for accountants and stuff like that. So I was actually a user. So yeah.
Yeah.
So it's browser based. So you don't have to buy licenses and install them on your computer and stuff, which is always a problem because sometimes they have a lot of cases, sometimes they have no cases, sometimes they have to share a license, that type of thing. Anybody can use it from anywhere, anytime. We charge based on usage. We have little people that don't need it so often. It's
Mhm.
based on pages they do, and so we can scale up and down as far as that goes. And I'd say the security, the scalability, the performance, and the accuracy.
Amazing. That sounds great. And in terms of your target users or your target audience in terms of who's buying the software, is it PIs? Is it the government? I mean, it feels like it could be open to a lot of different end users.
All the above. The market is huge. Government, I've worked with every level of government in the US, from the federal government, state governments, and the FBI. They're all using old software. All of them are using 25-year-old software and they're all struggling. So I mean, we
They
know
need an upgrade. They need e-fraud
yeah,
services.
exactly. We know, the head of the FBI who does this, the Department of Defense, the IRS. I mean, everybody on the federal government level. And then you've got the state governments, the Attorney General's office. Every state in the U.S. Has a Medicaid fraud control unit. So they're investigating fraud. Every agency has an office of the Inspector General. I mean, there's just so many different places and agencies in government, and then all the local sheriffs and the police departments. We have 3,000 sheriffs in this country. So this is every level of law enforcement. Even like we have somebody here in one of the county schools. They had their own police force. And police chief, contacted me and said, we have somebody embezzling, from us. We want to investigate. So you have that. Then you have forensic accountants, a lot of individual practitioners up to big, giant companies worldwide. Then we've got attorneys. prosecuting white collar crimes and all this kind of stuff. Bankruptcies, divorces. I mean, one of the cases I was just talking about is a huge divorce case. It's crazy. So that, and then the businesses. I mean, I once had a guy, he says, my partner, I think my partner's embezzling from me. It was a two-man, company, hired a forensic accountant, and he suspected that they were using the company American Express credit card for his personal expenses. So we did the analysis. People sometimes they lose their computers, that their QuickBooks disappears and stuff like that. They've got to redo all that.
Yeah.
I mean, the uses are amazing, and it's not just a U.S. problem. Even though we've got crazy banks and stuff here, it's a global problem.
Oh, definitely. Definitely. I can definitely see. And does the technology translate globally in terms of all of the security protocols, legal protocols, things like that?
Yeah, I mean, those are the things when you ask, what's coming down the pike in the next 6 to 12 years, obviously,
Yeah.
EU, has the requirements, the security requirements, and that
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
stuff. So,
Yeah.
so that's the kind of stuff that we'll be adding, and building upon
Amazing.
as we go
Amazing.
along. But in terms of the basic technology and the software, nothing changes. We can do anything in any language. You just have to, and what language you're using. It's amazing.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about AI, so I'll let you lead me.
It honestly, it's so fascinating. Fascinating. I'd hear you talk about it for hours. What I wanted to talk about is, well, we were going to talk about industry trends, but why don't we talk about AI first? How are
Yeah.
you leveraging AI in e-fraud services at the moment?
Yes. AI I use for everything in my life now, literally.
Good to hear.
And again, just programming. I'm doing it day in, day out. I am on AI. Also, that's my tool, and that's my best friend now, and that's my team.
Sorry, which AI bot are you
Yeah.
using for
And we're actually using Claude. Interesting
Claude?
story.
Yeah.
We started with Claude, and switched to Gemini last year. And the reason we switched was, again, we've got this big data coming in. People upload PDFs.
Mm,
I could have a 50 megabyte PDF. Claude couldn't handle it. Gemini did. We were able to handle it. It handles the PDFs better. And on the output side, it was very limited. It was like 8K, we could output in Claude, and we were putting out, tons of stuff. So, and then we're chunking it and stuff. But, if you got 8K versus 64K, it's a big difference. So that's why
right.
we went to Gemini. So Gemini was our engine. However, for development, software, and code, I got very frustrated with Gemini. I'm back to Claude. And
Okay.
I will consider even using Claude as the engine again. And the only thing holding me back now, and I need to see it, the PDFs. Gemini handles the PDFs very well.
Right.
And Claude didn't. I don't know. Claude is moving so fast that you don't
Yes.
know. But
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Good to know. And what about in your because you said you're using AI in every aspect. How about in terms of your managing your prospects and things like that?
yeah,
Do you have a database or an SDR set up?
yeah, yeah. We use HubSpot for our CRM. I use Sales Navigator a lot as a tool. Our
Yeah.
audience, and I have 27 groups on LinkedIn, thousands of members. That's another thing with our market or professional organizations. There's an organization called the Association of Certified Fraud Examiners, 94,000 members worldwide, and there's just tons and tons of them. I was
Yeah,
just
yeah.
talking. Matter of fact, I was a founder of the local chapter several years ago, and I was talking to the president the other day about doing some presentations and stuff. So there's a ton of, professional organizations. But what I found on Sales Navigator, and I have lots of connections, obviously, from over the years, that, I can reach out to people and people, high level people in big companies answer me.
Yeah.
So, but what I use AI there more as a tool. That's almost like, a manual thing. I write a note. Some of it in my mind, marketing is a lot of personalization, it's relationships,
Yeah.
it's stuff like that. These
Yeah.
mass mailing, automated things, I don't do.
Yeah.
What I do use it for, I'll tell you, like an interesting thing. I mentioned the Medicaid fraud control units. There's 53 of them, and they publish a directory, for the public of every director and all their information and stuff like that. It's a PDF. So
Mhm.
it's PDF. And, a few years ago, I would have, retyped it or whatever. So I gave it to Claude or whoever. And I said, give me a list of, Excel list or CSV list. that I then uploaded into HubSpot, mail murders into an email. So from a time saving standpoint and those types of things, I use it as a tool for, all kinds of things.
Yeah, nice. Very cool. Very cool. Love it. And then what sort of industry trends are you seeing at the moment, would you say?
Well, I'd say everybody sees that fraud is growing rapidly and
It
rampantly.
is. Yeah.
The big thing we see, I don't get that much involved with it, is elder abuse, elder fraud, and stuff like that. People get taken advantage of. But what's happening now, and AI is, accelerating the rate of fraud because of what fraudsters could do with AI and, foreign countries and stuff like that. The bad actors disguising themselves and doing all kinds of stuff. And it's still real. I mean, I will admit, I don't write anything anymore. I tell Claude, what I want to do. I give it background information, stuff like that. It writes better than I do.
Yeah,
So anybody in the world can write, something that, looks reasonable and
definitely.
plausible and makes sense. I even see it, in emails, sometimes. I mean, and I'm very, astute about this stuff, but you can see stuff that anybody else, would click on, could really get into trouble very easily.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, and
Later.
it's interesting, some of the fraud cases that I've seen over the year, they're not anything high tech or anything. They're just people that think they can get away with things. We had one case, the guy raised like $80 million for a tech product that was going to revolutionize credit card processing, make it cheaper, faster, or something like that.
Yeah.
Never spent a penny on the business. He and his lawyer, he and his attorney, this was a public case, that they had apartments, they had houses, their relatives had cases and stuff like that. It's just people do these things, and I get it. I don't know how they think they can get away with it forever, but it's weird.
I know it's incredible. It's incredible. But I do agree with you. Unfortunately, what scams are getting more and more sophisticated. How is eFord helping to navigate
Yeah,
those new and sophisticated scams?
yeah, and again, it comes back to, we're looking at the bank statements, that's what they're looking at, the money trail.
Yeah.
The other thing that we do that just happened, I didn't do it intentionally, although I would have. When we have a checks are listed, the check 1, 2, 3, 4, check 5, 5, 6. Who is it made out to? So one of the things the investigators always had to do is go back and look at the checks. Well, guess what? If we've got check images in the PDF file, it automatically populates who the payee is. If we have it, it puts it in the description field, even if
Brilliant.
it's handwritten, or whatever. You may not, recognize it, but it puts it in there automatically. What this is all about is saving time. Okay. An investigator could be spending, months on a case, weeks and stuff like that. And if they have to spend weeks on just the data analysis, data and entry, that's not a good use of their time. And one of the problems with the growth of fraud, and this is a past problem, they can't prosecute all the cases that are there, especially law enforcement and stuff like that. So this enables them to process more cases in less time and then doing the things they should be doing, which is investigating the crime, not fixing up errors in data type
Sure.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. They can spend time on actually trying to catch the criminals as opposed to having to analyze thousands of bits of data. So it's a really, really important software that you've built, to be fair.
And
Um,
the key to it, again, is the accuracy. There's plenty of software out there. Everybody says, we can convert bank statements to Excel and try to use it. You spend 80% of your time correcting it.
yeah, 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 absolutely. Well, like you say, you've spent a long time trying to build it, right? You've gone inside out in terms of this software, and I think, as you mentioned, you're now an industry leader because of it, and well respected in the field. So we're lucky to have you on the podcast for sure. What would you say? You've touched on it before, but in terms of your future goals for eFord services, and maybe adding in GDPR and things like that, but where would you like to be in terms of the business, in terms of the number of clients and things like that within the next 6 to 12 months?
Yeah. I mean, our first year we were projecting, $1 million of revenue and then doubling year over year after that. I mean, this could be $100 million business, no problem. And I'll put in one more plug. Something came out accidentally that we now have have as a function. One of our clients asked us, could we do brokerage statements? And I was like, yeah, we do it. We take the cash transactions like anything else. It's like, no, no, no. We have this 97-page brokerage statement. It was a 6-month statement. And we want every page, all the data in Excel so we can analyze it. Okay. Well, if you think about this brokerage statement, it's got 20 different tables in it. Each one has a different format, different columns, some is details, some is summary, this, that, and the other thing. So we now have the capability upload the same way you upload your bank statements, upload the PDFs. We have PDF to Excel, upload any financial document, whether it be payroll, general ledger, brokerage, or whatever. And what we do is, and remember, we don't know what it looks like beforehand. We have no idea what's in any of these things. And it figures out, it takes each table, it finds each table, it formats it correctly with the correct columns, and each table goes into a worksheet, an Excel workbook. So now you've got a workbook, each one is nicely labeled. You can analyze each page because it's all in a common format.
Amazing.
So that's another thing that, someday we'll get to, but it's there.
That's huge. That's huge. And so sorry, you mentioned y this could be $100 million company. Where would you like it to be at the end of 2026? What are your goals between now and the end of December 26?
I mean, financially, like I said, at our first $1 million in revenue, but just I think we'll have a good cross section, of users, in the US at least. We'll probably have some other
Yeah.
ones too, but I've met a lot of people in Canada, trade shows and stuff like that. The Salvation Army in Canada was, was all over this. So, it's just, wherever it goes. And the other thing is to offload the technology. I've been very protective now because we've been burned so much and stuff like that. So get it to a point where, we have trustworthy people, who can do that and then take it the rest of the way.
Amazing. So you wanna get to $1 million by the end of this year and hire some trustworthy people. Is that
Actually, we'll probably outsource most of it. I have a company that we're working with now that really good, gets us and, stuff like that. They're an AWS partner, and so that probably suits us better. One of the things I'll say here, when I'm doing technology, it would probably take 6 engineers to do it because that's another pet peeve of mine today. Everybody has their own little specialty to do everything, and that's one of the problems because they don't see the big picture. That's why things never work.
yeah.
Nobody cares about the business problem or what it is. Just tell me how to do my little thing here. And that's, where I come from, you did the whole thing. And obviously it's a long time ago and technology was a lot of different, was a lot different. But that's a big shortcoming, that I see today.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, look, it has been an absolute delight speaking with you, Barbara. And I'm really excited for this particular episode to air because I think any new up and coming entrepreneurs can learn a lot from you and the business. And thank you so much for your time and coming on our podcast.
Stephanie, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
No problem. Take care. See you all next time on Entrepreneur Odyssey.